suspects are being. One case involves the FBI is now offering $100,000 to see for the police are releasing.
Welcome to Misty Mysteries, a true crime and paranormal podcast. The true crime fact for this week is actually good news. Starting from the year 2000, there has been a significant fall in the rate of active serial killers. The 70s and 80s had the highest, so much so that the BTK killer, Sunday Morning Slasher, Green River Killer, and Casanova Killer all murdered their first victim in 1974. This week, I'm going to discuss a double homicide from Dublin, Ireland in 2007. Have you heard of Anchor? Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. When I started Misty Mysteries, I didn't know where to go, and Anchor helped me get Misty Mysteries started without charging me an arm and a leg. Anchor is really my suggestion for anyone looking to start a podcast. It has tools that allow you to record and edit in-app or on the website. Anchor distributes your podcast on all the listening places such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Good Pods, and all your favorite listening places. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place, and best of all, it's totally free on Anchor FM and on the Anchor app. Before I get into this case, I would like to thank Edward's daughter, Jessica, for allowing me to tell you about her father's story. I actually found her father's case through her TikTok, and I was able to work with Jessica on this case, and I hope it can help her and her family bring justice to her father. I would like to let you know that not being from Ireland may affect the way I say some of the names of the towns, and I apologize in advance. Edward Joseph Ward was born July 17th or 18th of 1983 to Martin and Nora Ward. Edward grew up in Tuam, Ireland. When he was 12 years old, he started dating his love, Jody. The two married when he was 16 years old. Edward and Jody had two daughters, Jessica and Katie. The family lived in Conkerton, Ireland, but Edward was working to move the family back to his hometown. Edward is described as a straight, honest lad from his brother Michael. He would also go on to say that he loved his wife and kids. He loved life. He lived it to the full. His heart was stuck in his kids. His mom, Nora, says Edward was a kind-hearted and generous person, that he would do anything for his family. She even shares a story about Edward asking his father, Martin, about presents for their anniversary, and the next thing she knew, he had bought them a van. She would say that even though he was a daddy himself, he would always be her little boy. Edward worked since he was 13 years old and was described as a hard worker. He was a registered motor dealer, and on August 5th, 2007, Edward was going to look at a car that a man named Brian Downs had for sale. Edward and Jody arrived to Brian Downs' home in South Dublin. Jody and Edward joked with Brian for a little bit before getting down to business. Jody remembers Edward kissing her before leaving to finish up some business with Brian. She sat in the car with the radio while Brian's kids played in his home. Jody saw shadows walk behind her car and some noises before she heard what she thought was fireworks. This was till she saw Brian's mom come towards her covered in blood. As a warning for those listening, I'm going to be retelling exactly what Jody saw during this attack, and if you don't want to hear, please skip over about a minute. Jody is quoted saying, "I went in and I saw Brian laying there, and I looked around and I saw Brian's been shot, and I looked down and my husband was dead. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. I was in the car and my husband was killed, and I checked him to see if he was alive. I saw Brian's boys running out to check on him, and there was blood all over Brian. I couldn't see any blood on Edward. I thought maybe he was knocked out, but then I shook him and he was dead." An unknown attacker had fired multiple shots at Edward and Brian. Brian was hit 8 times and Edward was hit 3 times. Edward at 24 years old and Brian at 40 years old were both pronounced dead upon arrival at the scene of the attack. The Gardaí arrived to investigate the attack that ended Edward's life. The Gardaí are the National Police Service of the Republic of Ireland. They are called Gardaí or the Guards. After speaking to an eyewitness of the attack, the guards were able to determine two men on a motorbike drove past the house and they did a U-turn towards the house. The driver of the motorbike parked the bike behind Edward's car while the passenger got off and headed into the yard to Edward and Brian, where he pulled out a gun and shot the men. The bike then drove off to the roundabout. The bike the killers drove was found on November 1st at 5th Lock in Grand Canal. The motorbike was a large Honda Blackbird with the registered number of 98MH6672. As the investigation continued, the guards were able to connect Brian Downs to a gang feud in Dublin, Ireland. This was called the Crumlin and Durham feud, a feud between two gangs from Dublin, Ireland, which started in 2000 when a drug bust split up a gang of young criminals who grew up together. Brian Downs was linked to this feud by supplying false plates and untraceable cars for reported gang activities. Brian had an arrest on his record in connection to these gangs. The guards believed the attack was a hit on Brian Downs by gang leaders or members and has been linked to 16 murders that took place during this feud. Edward Joseph Ward had no criminal connections, his brother Michael saying he was his own man, he wasn't a salesperson for Brian Downs, or he wasn't an associate, he was paying all his own taxes, he was a registered motor dealer, then some coward came from the middle of nowhere and blew him away. Edward was shot for being there. He was an innocent bystander, maybe even killed just so he couldn't identify the killer. Edward was loved not only by his wife and family but by hundreds of people. They all came to support and love the family when they laid Edward to rest. A piper led the funeral through his hometown while they all lined the streets. A horse-drawn carriage surrounded by young men dressed in black led Edward and the mourning family from the funeral home to the church. There was a tribute for Edward saying, "Edward, you are true blue." His father, Martin, talked about how if you were a good person, Edward would say you were true blue. In an interview, Jessica said she remembered seeing her father in a coffin and thinking he was sleeping. When she asked her mom why was everyone crying, her mom Jody told her that her father was going to look after her two brothers who were born stillborn. It has been 15 years since Edward Joseph Ward was killed, and his case remains unsolved. If you or anyone you know can help bring him to justice, please contact the Crumlin Guardia Station at 01-6666-200. Thank you for listening to Misty Mysteries. If you like the podcast, please share with friends, family, and on social media. Speaking of social media, you can find the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also find it on Buy Me a Coffee, where you can help support the podcast and allow it to grow. When you sign up for a membership on Buy Me a Coffee, you get a ad-free episode of Ghost Encounter episodes, along with other benefits. For a one-time donation, you get yourself a shout-out on the podcast. You can find the podcast on all your favorite podcast streaming places like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Good Pods, Anchors, and so many more. As always, my sources will be in the episode description, and I will see you